Good morning, everyone, and good morning to you, Christopher Beachy, sitting in the front row. I bet this is an existential experience for you, but here I am. I'm not sitting in the front row at the ASIH right now, or at the JMIH right now. I'm sitting in Hammond, Louisiana, in my office, where I'm the Department Head of Biological Sciences. It's my honor to get to address you guys as a past president of the ASIH. I still don't know how I got that gig. I hope it was worth it. I hope we'll see. But one of the things I get to do is talk about what I've learned as a member of the ASIH and what I've learned in all my service roles to the ASIH and what that means for us. Traditionally, I think people talk about their research during these lectures, during these plenary addresses, and maybe they got more to talk about than me. But I frankly don't think I became the editor because of all my work on plethodontid biology. I don't think I was elected to be president because I do neat tadpole experiments. Frankly, I think most of you aren't even aware of the work I do. That's okay. But you did elect me to be the president of the ASIH, and I think there's probably a reason. And I'm comfortable with assuming that reason that I think is correct. And that means today I'm going to talk to you about some things that may seem weird to hear about, but they're not really that weird. They may feel like things you already know, but trust me, I bet you're probably going to learn a lot today. I think from the young to the old, we can all learn from something I'm going to talk about today. Because today I'm going to talk about how the ASIH works, what the ASIH does, and what it should do. That means what am I going to do? I'm going to give you a primer on the ASIH. Then I'm going to talk about what happened in 2020 that affected the ASIH and really everybody here at the JMIH, the Jimmy meetings. And then I'm going to talk about the structure of ASIH. In other words, mechanically, how does it work? And more importantly, how do you get involved? Those of you who haven't been involved, there's no reason you can't be. There's a lot of work we do, and there's a lot of room for your service. Then connected to the service, believe it or not, and connected to the whole COVID crisis, and connected to our other traumas that we experienced over the past year and a half, I'm going to talk about money. It seems kind of crass to talk about, but money means a lot to the things we want to do. And I'm going to tell you that what we as a society, what I think we ought to do. So as I said, I've been a member for 33 years. I've done a lot for this in the society. I started off as a reviewer. I became editor. By the way, a little secret, I was never an associate editor before I became editor. I don't know that anybody ever knew that. Seems to have worked out okay. And I'll talk about the important roles of associate editors later. They're pretty amazing. And well, our current editor is pretty amazing too. And I'll talk about that person. I spent time on committees. Matter of fact, the first committee I was ever on was the nominating committee. And that's a terribly important committee. And I'll talk about the really good work that our current nominating committee did this year. It was a lot. After being editor, I stopped being editor, and then sure enough, just people decided I hadn't suffered enough, so I got elected to be president. So here I am now. Trust me, by the end of this, my whole goal is I'm gonna get to the end. I'm gonna ask you for money, you and you and you in the front rows and back rows, and all you guys out there in the internet land. Nice thing about this is you'll probably get to play it over and over again, hear me ask for money over and over again. I think it's money you want to give us, though. Okay. So you all know what the rules are. I'm going to ask for money. So that means I'm going to walk you through my little primer of the ASIH. And let's start doing that right now. All right. So I like working at whiteboards. And when I work at whiteboards, that means I got a black marker that I use on the whiteboard. So I'm hoping that you'll think this is kind of cute and clever. If you hate it, well, I hope you don't hate it, but we'll see. So first I want to talk about is the ASIH. The ASIH is basically a simple organization. We do two things. These two things don't seem to come through clearly when you read our Board of Governors reports. But if you want to understand how the ASIH works, you have to read the Board of Governors reports. That's the easiest place to start because everything is there. You can understand everything about how the thing works, and all you got to do is ask questions too. There's a lot of people. There are people who understand the things I'm about to tell you today. The ASIH does two things. The first thing it does is it publishes ichthyology and herpetology, our journal. Really, the flagship, the thing that people pay attention to from our society. Our journal is wonderful. Our journal is run by an editor. That's Leo Smith. You know, he's up there with the best editors that we've ever had, up there with the Michael Douglases and the Helen Gages. Leo's really something, and he's a lot because of his editorial team as well, of Katie Smith and Matt Gerard. They're an amazing team. A really big and amazing team are the AEs that work with Leo. These people do a lot. They're very important, and they really do a lot of the lifting for our society. These two positions, the editor and all the AEs, are by definition members of one group called the Board of Governors, and I will talk about them later. Leo, the editor, is by definition not only a member of the Board of Governors, but he is also on the Executive Committee, also known as Exec, the mysterious group that works behind a curtain and casts down decisions that sometimes people don't know where they came from. We're going to get all that cleared today. The other thing that the ASIH does, the ASIH helps to run and organize a meeting called the JMIH. That's where we are today. The JMIH could actually be split into two basic things that it does. The first function that it does is you come here, you give talks and posters, and that's really why we have a meeting. We have a journal to publish our work, then we have talks and posters to disseminate our work in another way. So we begin talking to one another. And it's kind of fun. Well, not kind of fun. It's pretty awesome. Anybody who's out there at your first meeting, going to meetings is like the best thing ever. It's just, it's great. And you'll have a good time. You'll make connections to people. Everybody here is friendly. It's really good for you. Another important thing that happens at the JMIH on a thing we call day zero, before anything happens, is all the committees start meeting. The ASIH has many different committees, and these committees make something happen. They all do their individual pieces, and they all sort of can come together to serve this structure called the ASIH. Now, these things cost money to do. To put on a meeting costs money. To publish a journal costs money. And we talk a lot about the journal nowadays. And one of the most important lessons I want to get across with my lecture is that great message that Margaret Neighbors has been telling us for years, that we should pay for the journal. We shouldn't expect the journal to pay for us. That's a challenge nowadays, but we still need to hold that. Our journal is terribly important. And when I was editor, I didn't worry about how much the journal cost or what it was costing the society. I expected the society to support the journal. I think we still should stay with that model. That's the kind of group we are, and it's very important. Okay, those committee meetings, once again, those are hugely important, and I will tell you later on how to get involved in a committee. It's not as hard as you think. It can be done, but those committee meetings are terribly important. I want to talk about 2020 and some of the things that happened. There's just no way to quickly summarize 2020, but some of the things that happened. COVID, yeah, we're still struggling with that. And that's what's responsible for the very unusual meeting we're having this year. It also accounts for the meeting that was canceled last year. Now, first let me address the meeting cancellation. That was one of the easiest decisions I've ever been a part of. And it was an amazing thing because the ASIH Executive Committee was unanimous and quick to decide, oh, we should cancel this meeting. In retrospect, it seems like a no-brainer, but I've always been glad that I was around such a strong group of intellectuals, such a good group of considerate persons that all understood this is what we need to do. We didn't worry about the money. We said we need to worry about safety, and that's what we did. We started to worry about money later, but even that was pretty easy because of a very interesting collaboration that grew out of the 4 society presidents, the ASIH president, me, and the presidents of the SSAR, the AES, and the HERP League. The 4 presidents haven't often interacted in the past, but last year caused that to happen, and I think that was a good, positive, productive thing. So the meeting cancellation, many people ask me, boy, that must have been a hard year to be a president. Oh, it was easy peasy. It was just a decision that I thought was a no-brainer, and I didn't lose a bit of sleep about it. I'm kind of glad I'm not a president this year, because this is actually the hard year to be a president, And God bless Frank McCormick, because he is our current president, and he's the one who's had to step up and meet the challenge, along with the MMPC and Lara Ferry. And the fact that we're having a meeting at all is remarkable and spectacular. Many of you probably haven't understood why we're having a strange hybrid meeting. Because we have some people here on campus, here in Phoenix, all the societies have saved $100,000. Now to the ASIH, that means about $63,000. That's important because we're going to talk about finances later. And we can't really at this time just start writing checks for $63,000. You may think we can, but our money's not like you think it is. So the meetings this year are an incredible challenge, and I'm really impressed by how everyone has been dealing with that incredible challenge. Now, as if we thought COVID wasn't bad enough, something worse happened, of course, and that was the murder of George Floyd, and out of it grew the movement that we call Black Lives Matter. And that had other consequences as well. And it's been hard, right? It's caused some good things to happen. It's caused an awareness to happen. Many of us who thought we were aware didn't really consume what we really needed to know and how we really needed to understand what was going on. We had to deal with the ghost of E.D. Cope. And many of us didn't realize that our journal was named for a racist. And Cope, apparently, when it came to racism, he was no slouch. He was a titan of it. So we had to deal with that. And once again, that was one of the easiest things I've ever thought of. It seemed like a no-brainer to me. It wasn't complicated at all. So we changed the name of the journal to Ichthyology and Herpetology. I think it's actually a better name. It feels better. I think it is better. And I'm really glad that we have a new journal and we have a new name. Now, we will talk about finances later. Having a new name can be expensive, and that's really cost us a lot this year. It's been pretty tough. It's presented us with some challenges. Now, I will say this. 2020 had these challenges, especially the Black Lives Matter movement. It was a thing we had to really come to grips with. And many people in the society are at least thankful that others in the society are starting to realize what individuals have had to deal with. I've always thought of myself as a pretty hip guy, my eyes wide open, but oh no, I've learned a lot. And so I realized, I need to learn more like every day. So I'm trying. One of the things I like to do with my life is try and be better. And it's interesting to look at myself yesterday and think, okay, can I be better today? I think I've worked harder at that since last year's movements. For that, I'm grateful. I'm sad that it had to happen in this way. Now, honestly, I think we've lucked out. We had a pandemic and we dealt with it. That was awesome. Way to go. We felt great as a society. We had a huge part of us, our journal, that was named for a racist. So we changed the name, and that was considered to be awesome. And it was. But I still think that distracts us from the real target and the real game changer. Dealing with the institutional racism, sexism, any form of discrimination that exists. We've had members of our society that have always recognized those things and always knew what they were about and have been trying to share those things with us for years. And as someone who didn't catch on big time until just this past year, I extend my apology. I'm sorry. I'm really glad I'm on board, and I get it now. And I get that I'm going to learn more all the time. But we have to deal with that. Life is messy, and life is always seemingly full of contradictions. And I do think that the claim that one doesn't have contradictions is immature and or naive. And so what do I think we should do? And who am I to suggest what we ought to do? I don't know. I get to give this lecture. That's what I think I am. I think a good place to start is just to learn how to get better at being kind to one another with no exceptions. Everybody gets the kindness. And then we try to honor one another, and then possibly even try to love one another. I think that would be great. I think it's harder than just saying it, but I think that's what we really ought to strive for. Now, weirdly enough, that sentiment that I just expressed, one of the best ways to really start to get at that issue, to try and deal with it, is to talk about the structure of the ASIH. So let's talk about the ASIH and how it works. I'm sitting here because I'm a past president. That means once upon a time, I was the president of the society. And when I was the president of the society, that meant by default, I was the leader of the executive committee. There are other things. Next year, I will become a prior past president, and we will also have a president-elect. So at any given time on exec, there are 4 individuals who are considered the presidents. So really, while I only have a 1-year term as president, you're here for 4 years, and every year has a different function. And by the time you're a prior past president, you really know what's going on, and you can continue to share your wisdom with the other presidents. So exec always has 4 sort of presidents. Other members of exec: the Endowment and Finance Committee, the 2 co-chairs are on the executive committee. The 2 co-chairs of the Long Range Planning and Policy Committee are also on the executive committee. We deemed those committees as crucial to the proper functioning and long-term functioning of the ASIH, so they have always been a member of the executive committee. We did something remarkable. Our Board of Governors did something remarkable by discussing and approving the idea that we now need to have the chair of the DEIB, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee. The chair of that committee is now a member of exec. Also, the graduate students, the Graduate Student Participation Committee, their chair is a member of exec. I think this is a progressive thing that has happened, and that's good for the society to do that. The more we can have the right people plugged into where the decisions are being made, the better. Now, in addition to these 10 individuals, there is the holy trinity of the editor, the secretary, and the treasurer. This is the machine that makes the ASIH work. These 3 individuals do all the heavy lifting. We're talking about Leo Smith, we're talking about Mark Sabay, and we're talking about Catherine Meslenikoff. Boy, those 3, they're remarkable individuals. We're lucky to have them. They do way more work than you can imagine, and probably way more work than can be described. And we're thankful for them. That's the executive committee. Now, what do they do? Well, the executive committee really is meant to act as a funnel or a pipeline to make sure all the committees can do their work and can work together. We have dozens of committees. Those committees minimally have 5 members. Some of those committees have dozens of members. The idea that there's not a committee appointment available to you, that's just ridiculous. You put your hand up, you'll find a committee. There is work to be done everywhere. The exec is also a pipeline for the MMPC, the Meeting Management and Planning Committee. That also intersects with the Herpetologist League, the SSAR, and the AES. Now, many think exec is in charge of the ASIH. That is not true. Exec is simply the body that gets elected to do the work of who's really in charge. The group that runs the ASIH and is responsible for all its decisions, the proper officers, is the Board of Governors. The Board of Governors is a huge body. And in a very exciting move, all the past presidents were gracious enough to say, hey, why don't you kick us off the Board of Governors so we can open up a lot of new spots to young people, to new people, to diverse persons. And that's been a wonderful thing. The committee that's had to suffer with that is the nominating committee, and the work being done by Michael Franklin, Michelle Thompson, and Kate Bemis this year to find all the nominees for the Board of Governors. That's been hard because of all the vacated spots. The challenge of the nominating committee was to fill those up. So kudos need to go out to those 3 individuals for all the work they did to make that happen. Our Board of Governors overnight basically has been dramatically changed, and that's just going to be good for us. So what this means, the structure, is that you can find yourself a committee. How do you get on a committee? Well, there's 2 ways. Some of the committees are elected. Now, very few of the committees are actually elected committees. How do you know this? Well, you read the Board of Governors reports and the Constitution that will explain the committees that are elected. Most of the committees are presidential appointments. If you want to be a committee member, you know what you got to do? You go find the president, Frank McCormick, and you say, I want to be on a committee. And Frank will find some work for you, okay? If you can't find Frank, find anybody else who's on exec and say, I want to be on a committee. And we'll make sure Frank gets the word and they'll put you to work. Now, this is all about service. And one of the things that people don't do is take all their opportunities to serve. The thing I want to tell you is do service, volunteer, accept committee appointments, accept reviewing opportunities. Never turn down an opportunity to serve. You can be afraid of it, but never turn it down. You won't regret that. It'll be work, but what else are you going to do? It's kind of the gig. It's why you're here. You know, are you so busy that you can't do service for this society that's going to do service for you, this society that may have actually given you some money at some point? That's the next part of my talk. Now, no offense, but your work's not really that important. I certainly know mine isn't. Service is what makes your peers come after you better. Serve the society. It makes the society better. More people come in and they get better. And it's what folks are going to remember. Look, everyone's going to remember Marvel E. Wake. You know, Marvel E's amazing. She should be everybody's hero. You just can't have a research record like Marvel E because she's spectacular. She's a superstar, okay? Me, not so much. But if anybody remembers me, they'll probably remember that I was an editor and I was a president. So it's okay that they don't know that I like to work on larval plethysmid salamanders or tadpoles. That's okay. It's about making the world around you a better place. You do that through service. Get on a committee. Just volunteer. There's a place for you. Okay, now, what's that got to do with actually doing something? It has to do with the money. Where is the money? Everybody thinks ASIH is made of money because we hear this number, 1.5, 1.6, $1.8 million. And on our books, it looks like that's what we got. But let me talk about where that money is. It's in funds. For example, the Stowe Fund has $116,000. Wouldn't that be great to spend? There are many different funds. And look at those numbers. They're huge. They're big numbers there. You're like, wow, look at all that. Well, let's dig in a little bit and think about that. Most of those are awards. There are also a group of awards that weren't listed there. Those are awards that don't have a cash prize associated with them. So don't just assume when someone gets the Johnson Award that they've got a $5,000 check going with it. The Johnson Award is the service award. Why would there be money associated with it? Well, there's all this money. And those green check marks indicate the ones that are all about awards that we give. Now, what do we do with all this cash? Well, we pay for the journal. It's expensive. We pay for a meeting. It's expensive. We pay for awards. They're not quite as expensive. Now, just a side note about the awards. In 2019, we doled out $47,000 in personal awards to humans who were members of our society and come to the meeting. That's actually pretty remarkable just for us to be able to give away $40,000, $50,000 a year. The disbursement of that is also probably a bit misunderstood. Most of that goes to students, and some of it goes to older members. But the ASIH has always and historically been about funding and helping students find their way. And it remains that today. And all the constitutional changes that have occurred over the past year are all about that. So let's get back to the money then. What about the money? We've got some interesting spots on here. Look at that circle there. What is that? There's nuts. What's in there? Well, these are awards and they're funded. They fund awards. This is also an award. And it's worth $10,000 a year. There's $900 in that account. Now, why is that? Because we believe the Cashner needed to work. Now, that was exec. For a few years, meetings are great, we made money. The journal was making money, everything was going great, and we had money laying around. Now, when I say money laying around, where is it? It's in that bottom line, the general operating fund. Got $200,000. When that fund is healthy and growing, well, sure, we don't actually have to do the hard thing and figure out how we really need to fund the Cashner. So if we take the Stowe Award at the top, that's called a corpus, that $116K. We don't spend that. we use the interest to fund the awards. And that's how it is for all those other green check marks. The Kashner doesn't have a corpus. If we want to do the right thing, and I know we do, we want to continue to support our DEIB initiatives. We need to fund the Kashner, and it's time for us to raise money. Our general operating fund has $200,000. It pays for a meeting, the journal, and Kashners, amongst other things. These are all bleeding money right now. We are taking losses because of the pandemic. We are taking losses because of the journal name change. It's incredibly expensive. And the Kashner isn't funded by anything. Now, we could do a lot by simply funding the Kashners, and that would go to what we really want to do, which is to support our DEIB initiatives. So after all this, we've got a problem. Right now, our income into the general operating fund is less than our cost. That's a bad model to work on. It means either you got to dig into your 401k to pay for your new kitchen, and we could decide to do that, but we try not to do that. Or we can try and learn to budget appropriately and increase our income, or move Kashners out of a general operating fund into a proper Kashners fund. I think we need to do that because it's good for our funds, and it's what we ought to do. It's what we say we want to do. So I'm here to start asking you for money. And I support our DEB initiatives, fund the Kashners. I'd like to tell you a million things in this lecture, but I'm running out of time, but I want to tell you to fund the Kashners. I do think funding the Kashners is about so much that we want to do. It will help us continue to fund our journal that is getting better and is newer, because now that cost won't hurt as much. If you want to fund the Kashners, you just go to asih.org and you can find the donate link. If you want to ask me any questions about all this stuff, you can find my contact. Well, people seem to know how to contact me. But if you want to know how, if you don't know how, just go to amphibiangrowthproject.org. You'll find me there and reach out for questions. I mean everything I've said. I'm glad to see all of you out there in internet land and right here sitting in front of me in this audience. I'm especially glad to see you, Dr. Beachy, in that front row. You look great. You look fabulous. I also believe what I said when I want you to commit to service. Do the service. And I believe we need money, okay? The money will do a lot of things. It'll do the right thing, both financially, it'll do the right thing for our societal, emotional, proper health and well-being. I wish all of you to have a great conference this year, whether or not you're here or away. And I wish all of you continued good health. Thank you, all of you.